Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the SITREP or Situation Report or Summary for the day of 20 to 21 for the 26th to 27th of October for the Israeli-Hamas War. And the Israeli have started to enter Gaza. The latest information suggests that the Israeli have attacked in mainly two directions. Once is over in the north through the Ares checkpoint. Towards Beit Hanoun, as well as towards the Indonesian hospital between Beit Lahia and Beit Hanoun. The fighting currently is in this region here, as well as at Beit Hanoun. So far they are engaged by the Hamas forces in this area here, and fighting is currently ongoing. It's interesting though. If you ask the IDF, they say that this is actually not the actual invasion. This is actually still part of an expansion of the raiding that they have been doing the previous 1 day or two. So, according to the Israeli media, as well as other OSIN and channels, they all have repeated from different sources saying that the Israelis say that this is actually not the ground offensive just yet. This is not official ground offensive. And the large-scale ground offensive is still not yet. But even at this level of in terms of the pressure for the Hamas, it looks like the Hamas is still very outmatched. The other part where the Israeli have entered is actually to the east of Burej camp. So the Israeli forces entered through the fences that they have now fully controlled, and they have anchored into this eastern part of Burej. And similarly, the Hamas forces have engaged them in this area here. There is some rumors of RPG being fired at Israeli tanks and whatnot, but we shall see. I don't think RPG is very effective against the Merkaba. Previously there was actually a Israeli landing. An amphibious operation was reported over at the Rafah beach. So this is Rafah, and this is the Rafah beach. The Israeli forces actually landed troops in the Rafah beach, and then they engaged in fighting in this region here. They allegedly is actually attempting to attack the Hamas what's it called, infrastructures and compound used for their naval commando forces. So it's very interesting. If this is true, this information is true, which means that the Hamas actually have their commandos or launch point in the furthest possible place, and to conduct a landing over at Zikim over here, which is quite interesting that they have this capability to launch naval landings so far away. And the Israeli actually landed forces, and they actually also released footages to show the assault. The Hamas Qassam Brigade however actually says that this Israeli forces was discovered by the Mujahideen, and then they fought, and then it was through the intervention of the Israeli Air Force that actually saved these Israeli commandos, where they actually left by the sea. They fled, according to the Qassam Brigade. But if you look at the Israeli reports, they say that this is an operation with a targeted raid from the sea in southern Gaza. Then they hit Hamas military infrastructure and compound used by the commandos, and then the Navy and the Air Force took part in the operation, and then they exited the area following the activities. The statement of the soldiers or troops exited the areas following the activities is actually similar to actually another thing that they have done previously. They previously has did this raid over in the north Gaza. So you can see the soldiers exited the area in the end of the activity. So what happened in this part, where the previous SITREP, a lot of people was very unhappy, because I criticized their idol, Colonel McGregor, and I insist on the point: zero evidence that whatever he said about Israeli and American commandos or special forces entered into Gaza to save the hostages and then got massacred, this never happened. Some of people say that this is actually referred to this activity. If you actually look at this raid, this came out right after I finished recording and published the video. If you look at the video that was published by the IDF, this is actually an armored drive-by, if you want. So what happened in this video, in this part, was that the Israeli entered, the armored vehicles entered, led by a bulldozer that actually create a path for the tanks. They basically drive around and exited. And while they were driving around, they actually fired at targets that they have previously established to be defensive positions but of the Hamas forces. And they have ATGM nest, machine gun nest, or whatever. So the tanks basically went in, do a drive-by, and then they fired at the targets, and then they left. This is actually have nothing to do with special forces saving hostages, which is why this is not the one. So as much as I know that a lot of people really likes Colonel McGregor, Douglas McGregor, I understand, because I also like him. But the thing is, false information is false information, especially for someone who is so high profile and on one of the biggest platform, Tucker Carlson's show, which is one of the most watched show, despite it's only published on Twitter. So this is why this is important. Someone of his stature cannot be reporting false information. It muddles and messed up the information space. And what happened is that all the pro-Palestinian media or channels basically clip that part that he said that and basically use it as propaganda. That's what happened. The reality is no one talked about it, not even Hamas themselves. If you want to know why, Hamas even they are so lacking of victories, they're so lacking of success. They're reporting every little single thing that they're doing. They fired a rocket salvo at a city or the village or the town. They report it. There is no indication whether they actually hit the town. They fired a surface-to-air missile at a drone. They report it, but they actually never shot down the drone. The drone was never mentioned about being shot down. Even a single of their militia died over in the West Bank. They report it. Would they not report a massive success, military success, killing multiple special operation forces, including Americans? It's impossible that they want to talk about it. If you look at this report about this raid, this amphibious operation by the Israeli, as you can see, they call it a success. They call it a jihad of victory and martyrdom. They actually say that they won, and they say that the Israeli left behind a quantity of ammunition and they fled to the sea. In fact, who knows, maybe the Israeli was successful in their operation. They destroyed a compound, killed a number of the Hamas commandos, and they left. Who knows? Nobody knows. But they celebrated it. So to suggest that there was a special operation being launched into Gaza Strip trying to save hostages and they failed massively and the Hamas not reported, come on, dream on, man. It's not possible. It's impossible that Hamas will give up such a massive chance to boast to their fellow rebels and terrorist group all across the Middle East. You see, we can kill Americans, you can't. So why would they not do it? So impossible. So anyway, the Israeli has also resecured the entire Gaza border, as I mentioned just now earlier, and they actually repaired all the fence. Not just the fence, but they also repaired all the intelligence and the cameras and everything. And then they say that the system is now almost fully completed as per before the war. And they say that the troops worked under fire 24/7. So, which is actually true because we do have information as per I have reported. If you have followed the SUPPRESSION, you will have known that Israeli forces along the border has been operating along the border, and they have been attacked by the Hamas forces, especially in this area here, in the eastern part of Khan Yunis. This is where a lot of the attacks occurred. And so and of course, one of the attacks was also being used as an example of the colonel's uh, alleged incident, which is also not. Which I have to emphasize again, it was a armored thingy that what happened. So this is the tank was blah blah blah. So there was a attack. No, this is 22nd. So it was, I think it's this one. So two bulldozer and a tank, and then force the force to withdraw. It's not special forces, it's still armored forces. And this actually looks exactly like the formation that was used in the drive-by that I mentioned on the earlier just now, where it was led by bulldozers, and then the Merkava tanks actually followed behind and firing. So the Israeli did try once, and then it failed. In this area here, yeah, they did try to enter. It did not work out. This happened on the 21st, 22nd. So and then they tried again. This time around in a different angle. So this entry here from the east of Khan Yunis did not work. This was eliminated. So the Israeli forces launched an attack from another place in the east of Burej, and then this time around also in the north. And if you can see all these angles of attack, so Israeli attacked from here. You can see that it's basically across the entire of the Gaza Strip. Which means that the Israeli are deliberately trying to stretch the resources of the Hamas by attacking from all directions, and to cause Hamas to not just concentrate their forces over in the northern area around Gaza Strip, or maybe around in the central regions, or also in the south around Khan Yunis, but they now have to also guard the coast, the beaches, the very, very long beaches of the Gaza Strip, because now, which means that Israeli may actually land forces in any area, and this will actually cause major tactical or strategic consequences for the Hamas forces. So this is actually why this raid is actually so important. This raid will cause paranoia on the Hamas side for this Hamas forces that is trying to defend their position or lay the trap. Now they have to lay the trap across the entire Gaza Strip because the Israeli may come at any angle. So otherwise, there is also artillery shelling has happened. So other than the attack coming from this north and central area, there is also artillery shelling over in the south. So instead of airstrikes, although there was airstrikes, but they are now using artillery. Artillery was reportedly used on Deir al-Balah, Khan Yunis, as well as in the eastern part of Rafah. So this shelling by the Israeli, I'm not sure what's the purpose, but this information coming from Palestinian sources. So we have to take it with a pinch of salt, whether this is actually airstrike or actually artillery. So airstrike was reported as usual on the 26th to the 27th. Over on the 26th report, they reported to have hit 250 targets, and so they did not mention about on the 27th, so don't let's take it as such. As usual, the Hamas also fired rockets at targets, and it feels like the intensity of the rocket attacks seems to be dropping. I don't see as much as previously. There was a shelling reported at Nirim, over at the Riem military base. We also have at Tel Aviv. So that's I think also at Haifa. So Haifa was actually previous report. Yeah. So that's about it. It doesn't sound like a lot. Ashdod, we also have some shelling over at Ashdod, at Ashkelon as the usual one. But the intensity, the range of the targets seems to have fallen by a lot. There is also some very weird reports over at Eritrea. So there is some information coming from this Telegram channel or this network called the El Mayadin. They cited some sources, again anonymous sources. No, you have to take it with a massive pinch of salt. They said there was an operation against Israeli soldiers over at the Dalak base in Eritrea. And then they say that the attack was at the top of the Emba Sorira mountain, which is used as an observation center in the Red Sea. They say that Israeli have a overseas base in Eritrea, and then there was a high-ranking officer that was killed. The problem is that they say that it was at the Dahlak Islands, and then they say that it was here, over at the mountain. So which then makes me wonder: is it the mountain or is it this one? So which I reckon is probably fake news, because there was literally no one else talking about this. Everyone that reported this points back to El Mayadin as the source of the information. So this information is most likely of fake. It's probably a misinformation, trying to create more motivation for the people that's fighting against the Israelis. So yeah, there's some of this icons that I forgot to color back to none. Okay, so over within the West Bank region, there is some fighting, and as previously I mentioned, I think in the previous SITREP as well, the entire intensity of the fighting have reduced by a massive amount within the West Bank. It looks like the arrest, the raidings have done its part. A lot of these militias or the hidden cells has been uncovered and taken out by the Israeli Defense Forces. And so what we do have is very small amounts. There was some shooting reported in the north of Ramallah. They say it's an armed clash in the military checkpoint of Atara. And then there was another one over here in Har Gerizim, so or the Mount Gerizim. So there was some shooting reported against the military post over at this Har Gerizim near Nablus, and over in this Jenin, there was also some exchange of fire based on video footages. This is reported by Israeli media, Israel Hayom. And that's about it within the West Bank. So I think the West Bank situation seems to be entirely come under control of the Israeli. This kind of level of shooting is very, very little. And so what the Hamas is doing on the West Bank is just encouraging the population to go on marches, protests, and try to confront the Israeli security forces as much as they can. But by saying all these things and without much of the fighting left, it looks like they have run out of options within West Bank, and I think the chapter for West Bank is pretty much over. Over at the Hezbollah Israeli border, the Lebanon-Israeli border, there wasn't much as well. Over the past 2 days, there's only some exchange of fire over at Avivim, as well as over at Misgas and so basically these are just rifle shootings, and it looks like the Israeli airstrikes may have done its part and deterring the Hezbollah from doing much more. So, or maybe Hezbollah is just preparing for a bigger operation and they are conserving their strength and not revealing themselves before their massive operations against the Israeli. There is a lot of rhetoric between the two. If you look at Israeli defense minister, they say that they are ready for a war in the northern front if needed. What is not listed here was Hezbollah's claim that they are ready for a protracted war of attrition for years against the Israeli. So let's see how this goes. It's just a war of words, tentatively, similar to what Iran is doing. They are warning against the Americans from doing more, and saying that they will attack the Americans. And then they are really trying to test the water. So no one is giving any respect for Biden, and they don't believe Biden is the kind of capable leader. It seems it doesn't give them the threat, it seems. And for the Americans, there are still some raidings. There was explosions or shelling being reported over at the Al-Shaddadi base over here, in this area here in the what do you call this, northeastern part of Syria. And then there was also explosion reported over at the El Oma oil fields. There's this oil facilities around this area that is actually controlled by the Americans, and within the SDF or the Syrian Democratic Forces controlled regions. So there's some shelling over there, and then I think that's about it for the Americans. So there's some shelling, basically just warning shots, I guess, just to keep them disturbed. And also another thing about there was some reports or rumors about Americans mobilizing over the past 2 weeks. It looks like these American forces that was mobilized is probably not to enter the Israeli conflict. So far, if you look at the history, Israel don't really need help, despite they would probably love. When they go to war, they tend to fight all alone. They are all alone usually in all their wars, and they still win their wars. So given this fact that the Israeli do have greater success, if you put it that way, in wars as compared to the Americans, Israeli probably don't really like foreign interference into their operations. And if you look at history, the Israeli are very rude to the Americans when it comes to military operations. They don't like the Americans to interfere. So which is also put into question why I doubt the colonel's words about American special forces operating with the IDF makes no sense, because the IDF don't really need that. Their commandos are actually very, very capable. And I remember, a few SITREPs ago, I mentioned about some Iraqi protesters taking buses and trying to move to the border region. Apparently, they did not go all the way to the West Bank border. They actually stopped at the Jordanian Iraqi border, and what they do is that they actually blockade the crossing. So the treble, crossing, this border crossing between Jordan and Iraq, is now somewhat closed. The Iraqi protester blocked the border crossing, and as a result, there was a huge queue of fuel truck from Iraq that is unable to get into Jordan. So the aim of this blockade is actually to stop oil and gas entering Israel through Jordan. So they are trying to prevent Iraqi oil from funding or aiding the Israeli war effort against Gaza, which is interesting, I would say. Yeah, so Jordan also cannot have oil. So anyway, that's the situation over at Treble, and where all these protester went to. So apparently they did not manage to go all the way to the West Bank and do this Naruto run into West Bank and then use their Sharingan against the Israeli forces. Tentatively, that did not happen. So anyway, this is the SITREP and summary for the day of 20 to 21 for the 26 to 27 of October. Currently is 28 as per the recording. The Israeli massive raidings or ground raids, if you want to call it, continues. It's basically ground operations, but this is not what they call invasion, the big invasion just yet. So we shall continue to see how this goes and how they proceed from here. But even at this current level, it does seems to be pretty scary already for the Hamas forces, I would say. And if there is still a bigger invasion, yeah, it's going to be extraordinary. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next update.